I'm doing great. How you doing?
I'm good, man, and welcome to Culture Pikine Diaspora. We're really happy to have you here today.
Oh, I'm happy to be here, man. Thanks. I really appreciate it.
Yeah, Daniel, before we go any further, I would just like to ask you to introduce yourself to people, just like we do with all the artists.
Okay. Awesome. My name is Daniel Morteh. My website is morteh.com, Morteh. I am a photographer and filmmaker based out of Jersey City, New Jersey. I work a lot with uh, many independent film companies such as Prestige Media, Sunnyside Down Productions, Mojo Media. My most recent work has been doing a lot of art curating. I did work with actually Ibu a while back with the Brennan Gallery, featuring a lot of African American artists. My photography is very urban based. I try to take photos of people in their environment. I recently put together a series of photography based on my trip to Havana for the second time, actually, that I'm trying to get started into the circuit in Jersey City ph-
Mhm.
photography world. And my most prized project was Havana Dreams, based on my first experience in Havana when I was shooting a documentary about Ben Jones, which is currently in circulation in independent film festivals.
Oh, great. I'm glad to hear all about that. Just like to ask you, are you like a self-taught like photographer, or did you graduate from any university?
Well, I started actually as a media arts major in New Jersey City University. My goal was actually to be a filmmaker. It still is in many ways, and it just kind of slowly evolved. It's photography is a little less stressful, and you have a time to really enjoy what you're doing, as opposed to filmmaking where you can enjoy it, but then after a while it starts to get to be work when you're editing and trying to perfect it and trying to make sure everything is in sync and stuff like that. With photography, you're able to like really turn the mistakes into art in many ways, or to really turn the puzzle into something more creative, I feel. And yeah, I've been just slowly learning and growing. I'm still learning in many ways, and I have great amount of peers and friends that help me really grow and be a creative artist.
Yeah, I saw some images from your documentary from Havana in Cuba.
Mhm.
Can you tell us a little bit about that? Was it something easy to do?
Yes, it's originally the is based on the documentary of Ben F. Jones. He is a painter based out of Jersey City, New Jersey. He actually taught at New Jersey City University for like 40 years, and
Yeah,
one of his
the mistakes into
40
art in
years,
many ways, or to really turn the puzzle into something more creative, I feel.
I'm sorry.
Oh, good. Yes, I'm listening. Yeah, I'm still listening.
Oh, yes.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's his artwork is very amazing. It's very captive of social injustice, contemporary pop culture, as well as his own views on how the world is. And
Yeah.
since he has such a lineage of work and such an amazing legacy, one of his nephews decided to put together a documentary
Painter
about
based
his
out of
life
Jersey City, New
experiences.
Jersey. He actually taught at New Jersey City University for like 40
And
years.
and I feel like it was a really amazing experience. And then I got the call to go to Havana to help shoot some of it, and it was just an amazing, amazing experience. And I was able to bring my personal camera with me and take amazing photography of of a world at that time not many Americans were able to go to because of the embargo issues, and to be able to go there and capture so many beautiful elements and bring it back was great. And to actually go back recently to expand my experience there even more by going to Vinales and even Trinidad it was really capturing so much more, and it was just an amazing, amazing experience. I actually have plans to go back in 2019 for the biennial, as well as hopefully this time be able to go to Santiago, because I heard Santiago is another element of art and culture in that area, and I really want to be able to capture that and bring that back.
So were like people really collaborative in terms of like you documenting them? What was their reaction?
What were the reactions? I actually went to one of the art festivals last night, actually, in New York City. It was the African Diaspora Film Festival in Columbia University. And of course, Ben Jones was there, as well as the producer, Mr. William Michael Barbie and LaDonna Young. They were all there in attendance, and it was, it was an amazing, amazing experience. So many of people drove as far as Newburgh, New York, in the snow to come and honor a man who deserves every bit of the accolade he deserves. They were So many of his family relatives were like, they were already in awe of his success, but this time to actually see it and capture it, they were like just really praising him and really like just are proud to say that he's his uncle, as well as so many former students who are now teachers are proud to say that they were taught by him, and he really captured, and his legacy is something that is going to be strong and vibrant for many, many, many years after he's gone.
Yeah. Daniel, not only you're a photographer, but you also do some curatorial jobs. So we have curated one show together, and you also like curated so many other shows. Can you tell us a little bit about that?
Oh yes, I think my first dabbing into art curating was, I think it was in 2011 actually. I actually forgot the name of the project, but I was able to get a few local artists from Jersey City. It was at a restaurant, and it was definitely a learning experience of, not only organizing artists together, and some of the artists have very interesting uh, habits and manners. You know what I'm saying? You got to remind them to get prices and cards and stuff like that. So you got to always stay on top of that. But also managing a relationship with the space that you're actually having the art show at. And I realized how important that is, because that first show wasn't really the best, but it was such an amazing learning curve for me, and it really helped me move on further to do one of my favorite art shows that I ever curated. Was called the Greenville Project. It was based on getting artists from a certain area of Jersey City that I felt like were very underappreciated. Jersey City is a very diverse and very, very beautiful community of people throughout the entire city. But I feel like through the social economical change that's happening in Jersey City, I felt like a lot of artists that were locally based downtown, that are former New Yorkers and stuff like that, I felt like they were getting more shine than people that were born and raised in Jersey City, and most importantly, born and raised in the Greenville section of Jersey City, which is the more lower impoverished community. And by getting artists from that area and bringing it downtown, so that people from downtown can really see who they are, really see the art that they contribute to the city, it really allows people to really further connect with those people in order to like make the city more communal in many ways, so that people downtown can go to Greenville to see what they have to offer, and vice versa. And it was an amazing experience. The artist that was featured in there was Christina Gray Villaflor, amazing photographer. Lorenzo Pickett, his recent work is outstanding. I'm actually negotiating his work to be featured at City Hall this February. And Kevin Jones, who has amazing, amazing paintings. His painting was actually one of his paintings was actually the first painting I ever bought when I was 25 and really, really broke. And somehow I managed to buy it.
Yeah.
And, yes. And then
yeah, go ahead. I'm listening.
oh yeah, and another one of my favorite shows was actually working with you, Evo. The show at the Brennan Gallery. It was really great. It was able to really get so many different artists together and really capture really important element of African American art in Jersey City. It was really a great show, and I really was honored and proud that you put me on board to help out with that.
Yeah, because Jersey City is very diverse in terms of art. You got like Indian artists, African, Cuban, and any kind of artist you might think of.
Hmm.
Daniel, you are originally from Ghana. You know your parents are from Ghana, and you were telling me you're the first generation to be born in the United States.
Yes.
So do you define yourself African American or African?
It's I define myself. Man, it's always a really complex question, because like I think I'm no different from the African Americans that were, what I'm saying, that have been here for generations, because I feel like I still deal with the pros and cons of being black in America. Whether or not I'm a first generation American, or been here for generations. But because of my history being so close to me, and just literally being the firstborn American, and I know my history, I know my background, I know where my grandmother is from, a town called Echeve, which is like 100 miles away from the capital of Ghana. To have been there, to experience that when I was 15, and that was my first trip back there, and to have that information, I definitely more connected with uh, my Ghanaian background. So I definitely do define myself more as a Ghanaian American,
Hmm.
even though I was a first generation born American. But when I have conversations or I discuss people like being considered black in America, I'm totally fine with that and consider it to be an honor because of just the importance of black people are in America, despite whatever political BS that's going on in this country. Being black in America is very important and has a really strong lineage, and I'm proud to be associated with that. But I take deep honor, and I always wear as a badge my history as being being Ghanaian.
Yeah, because are you? What do you think about like the terms that is being used right now, called like the new blacks, and then like blacks who are born here in America and don't have any slave legacy?
It's difficult and complex because I know that my opinion is based on the opinion of someone whose history of being black in America is very different. You know what I'm saying? Black people in America that's been here for generations, their views and their viewpoints is based on that. And I'm saying, through black people in America have really has suffered extreme oppression and destruction, and that still leaks into the generation today. Me being black, me being African American, me being black, and having such deep roots in Ghana, and knowing that my background is much different, and I definitely do look at it with one foot out, even though I'm living in this community. But I feel like you know it's definitely based on everyone's individual opinion, but it's very important to understand that you're just more than the history that you created in America. That there is an origin based on that, and it's a lot of individual choices whether or not they choose to accept their African roots, or just say I'm based out of here. What the information that I know so far. It's one of the reasons why I feel like black people in America, they also created their own culture. Hip hop is a big example of that. Even names, and black themed names that were created in America, Lakeisha and Tawana, those names have really strong bases of Africa, but at the same time, they're African American culture. It's very, you know, it's it's a complex situation, but at the same time, I respect that just as much as someone would say that they're black based, they're African American and they're African. So the new black is it's their choice, and I respect that. I'm not a part of that new black, but I respect that 100% because in America, everyone has different backgrounds. I mean, even black Africans, black Caribbean Americans that have roots here, black Cubans. What I'm saying? We all have very different backgrounds, but one thing that connects us together is our skin color, and to know the fact that we have a really beautiful lineage of history, even though that tree has various different branches.
That's right. And you as a Ghanaian born over here or African American, whatever. But how do you feel when you go to Ghana and people call you American but not African?
I totally understand that. It took me a while to not get insulted by it because it's just, if you go if if you don't know that country unless you've been there, so automatically you already have a different viewpoint. You have to go there in order to understand it. So, just like I go there to understand it, a lot of people have to come here to understand how I am more African among Americans here in America. But at the same time, when I go to Africa, I'm more American than African because I mean I love American food. I will pick hot dogs over fufu any day of the week. Uh, I still call football soccer. Little things. I don't know how to speak the language,
Mhm.
but at the same time, like I understand I was able to go to my father's village to where he grew up. I saw my grandparents before they passed away. I actually lived in the community. I helped build my father's house that he lived in before he died. So it's back when I was 15. So like I take that knowledge here in America and I embrace it, and like it stands out amongst a lot of my friends here, you know, who are, saying their history is like, their parents from the South and, Southern food and Southern culture like that, as opposed to my culture. So, I can understand where it's conflicting and people like look at me differently and vice versa. But at the same time, it's something that I've greatly accepted. It's hard for people to understand if they don't know, but as long as they're open to it and understandable and not disrespectful about it, then, then everything is cool.
Yeah, yeah. As a photographer and a filmmaker, have you ever thought about like making a documentary about your life in Ghana or your family life in Ghana?
Hopefully that will come into fruition. Actually, I'm actually making plans to go to Ghana hopefully next year. It's going to be an expensive journey, but it's worth it. Me and my girlfriend are planning to, my mother retired and moved back there. So I definitely have to go there for family reasons. But I actually want to make sure that I'll be there for 10 days and absorb as much of that culture as possible so I can bring it back. We're actually looking into like nonprofit organizations that we could probably help out for the day. And we're also going to probably check out, there's a small possibility we will actually fly out to Liberia as well because we have friends out there that has a nonprofit organization called More Than Me, and plus also my half brothers are all half Liberian, so it's a great way to like understand my half brothers' cultures. And I definitely have every intentions on bringing all my camera equipment and try to capture as much footage as possible, and hopefully when I come back I can turn it into something.
You're saying your mother moved back to Ghana, and I'm
Yes.
sure when you were kids, you didn't have any kind of notion about nationalities. Your mom was whether American or African American or Ghanaian. And how did you feel when your mom told you she was going to move back to Ghana?
She moved back. She moved back last year. I'm 30. I was 33 at the time. And I've been really pretty much independent, been living on my own since I was 25. So my mom told me at a very young age that she has absolutely no intention to die here. Like many Ghanaians, I know, he came to this country in, I believe, 69, and he retired and moved back there 10 years ago. And he died, I believe, he died a few years ago. And my mom literally retired and moved back 1 year later. And because she wanted to do the exact same thing, and she has that. She has a small home, and she's doing a little small business. I believe she's opening like a hall where people could throw parties and stuff like that. And it's something that she needed and deserved. She worked very, very hard. I remember growing up as a kid, and she had 2 jobs as a cashier for 12 years. She worked at R&S Strauss, an automotive store, as a cashier for 8 hours a day, and then she went right across the street to a place called Party City and worked as a cashier for another 8 hours. And she would come home with bags of groceries, and every Sunday she would cook all that food, and we would have food for the entire week, even though, like, once again, it was all African food, and I got used to hot dogs. So you could talk about how much I enjoy it. Oh yeah, I love my mom. Yeah, one thing I've always said, my mom always made sure I was fed. I never went to school starving, but as a man, I can never eat okra again.
Yeah,
because I was served nothing but okra as a kid.
Yeah, it's really complex with what some of the Africans are doing over here. They come and work for a couple of years. When it's time to retire, they leave the kids over here and go back to Africa because they don't want to die abroad.
Yes. Yeah. It's very important, and it really represents, and it shows the kids like they had goals and they achieved them, and that's something that I kept in mind when my father passed away. But unfortunately, me and my father didn't have the best relationship as I got older. I mean, we grew up differently. We view things very differently. But at the same time, when he passed, it took me a minute to process the fact that he came to this country broke, barely barefoot, and barely broke and barefoot, sorry, and learned a trade, owned a home, lost a home, you know, had ups and downs, saved as much as he could, gave it back to Ghana, built his houses, and retired there and prospered. You know, he achieved his goals, and that's something that's very inspiring to me. And you know, he achieved that. And you know, when he left, it was unfortunately on bad terms. But I'm really proud and honored the fact that he was able to accomplish his goals. And I'm
Yeah.
really more than happy you know, that my mom did the exact same thing, and it's something that she very much deserves. So when she left, I was really really happy for her. And it's also a reminder that when my parents leave, they also know that I am capable to survive on my own. Like I got this. Like
Right.
I,
Yeah.
you know, yeah. Like you know, now it's like, you know, I got to make sure I send money back, you know, help my mom out whenever she needs it, you know. So now I'm at this different level of responsibility as an adult, which, you know, parents really, you know, parents really put you in, because it's that tradition of that they raised you, they helped you out. So when they get older, you know, you have the responsibility to take care of them now. You know, and that's something that
That's
is
what.
very different from American culture.
Yeah. That's what they call socialism or social living.
Yes,
You take
yes,
care. You take care of the kids, and when the kids grow up, they take care of the elders. And no, let's talk about like African families in America. You see, it's a very complex thing because as a kid, you grew up in a family where everybody speaks like African language, like
hmm
English and maybe French. They're all like multilingual. And as a kid, you only speak English because you don't have anybody with to practice your African language.
yes,
And most of the African kids born in America speak English and Spanish
hmm
because English that's what they learn in school, and Spanish is like the babysitter. And then sometimes they forget like the African language.
yeah.
How do you see that? And I know you've been in the situation when you hear your parents speaking like African language. What
hmm
were you thinking about? What were you saying?
Oh well, you know, it's my parents speak Ewe, and they spoke it around me all the time. They never really sat me down and tried to teach me the language. There was never any books to learn and recite. See, that's the difference. I mean, you hear the language around you, you get to speak it. You can't really understand it when you write it down, but you get to speak it and you get to understand it. Unfortunately, you know, growing up in America and you go into an American school and you have, you know, American, you know, teachers and stuff like that, you hear more English than I heard. And plus, my parents worked hard a lot, so I barely saw them. So I wasn't really able to really hear them speak the language enough for me to learn some words.
Hmm.
And it wasn't only until I got into high school and they started teaching me Spanish, until my
Hmm.
parents was like, "You need to learn Ewe," and I'm like, you know, it would have been a lot easier if you told me when I was much younger. And it's something that my parents, that my mother still rips on me every now and then, like, you didn't learn Ewe, and I'm like, you know, you taught me at the wrong time. But it's with learning Spanish in America. I mean, you know, the majority of minorities is now Spanish, and one of the most useful languages to learn is Spanish, and that's why they teach it in schools, and that's why I think it's important that we should be as multilingual as possible. But if you have any advantage, if you have any opportunities to learn the language that, you know, of your parents' country, you know, no matter how dense the population can speak it, it's important to learn. I have a friend uh, that he's Indian, and I believe he speaks one of the languages that really the only a small population of people like speak, and you know, and I really find it to be amazing that he's able to do that.
Hmm.
You know, but at the same time, he also had to learn Spanish because of his job. So it's very important to be bilingual if you can and have the opportunity to. I just now discovered YouTube videos of how to speak certain language, how to say certain words in Arabic. So I'm trying to learn those as well. But right now, I got my Rosetta Stone, and I'm trying to learn Spanish actually.
Okay, that sounds good. Now, can you tell us about a little bit about your film editing or your film, whatever you're doing about films? Is it something that you really get involved in, and are you like working in any projects right now?
Yes. With film, no. It's really one thing about being an independent filmmaker is you'd be amazed how much time the editing takes from everything else. That's why, like, I always have the utmost respect for film editors, and I've always advised my friends who go and get the film and they hire an editor, make sure you pay them exactly what they're worth because the quality of the work is dependent on that. And as an independent editor, as an independent film contractor, and you're editing, you got to make sure that your business is tight because you really have to sacrifice days, weeks, even months of your life to work on this project 12 hours a day. So if you're independent and you still have a part-time job, it's very complex. And me being really young, that was the most difficult aspect of film work. I had to do a lot of the editing myself, and I had to do a lot of the editing, which and also finding time to work 12 hours work 8 to 12 hours a day at another job to make sure bills are paid. It's a part of the struggle that I accepted, but it was just getting to a point where it was really difficult for me to balance those two, which got me into photography. Actually, it was a way to express my art as well, and not deal with the stress of editing. I do edit from time to time, but always on my own personal stuff, more promotional videos, when I'm helping a friend out, for a very small thing. And also, it still helps me to keep my skills up. I have every intentions of going back into it once I have balanced both the business aspect as well as the artistic aspect of being a filmmaker. That's a very important thing to really, really have down if you're going to become a film editor. And currently, right now, I'm just doing a lot of photography work, a lot of curating work, and actually, um, also one thing that I learned as being a filmmaker and an editor is to have hobbies and to have things that are not film related that keeps your mind stimulated and focused. I've been doing a lot of, believe it or not, I'm doing a lot of cross distance cycling actually to help with health wise and mental wise.
Yeah, yeah, which is really interesting because photography is like really evolving with all the digital equipment.
Hmm.
As like a young photographer, how is there any difference between like the black and white photography they used to do before with the dark room and
Hmm.
with the new technology? Is there like any difference, or that has it helped you to evolve in terms of creating new imagery?
Well, I feel like with doing black and white traditional photography, going into the dark room and everything like that, it really it gives that person the utmost respect in the craft of photography. It is, I think it's a trait to practice as often as possible if you're a digital photographer. The things you learn about lighting and setup is so much different and so important if you do when you do digital photography. I'm really lucky that my father-in-law actually is a photographer as well, and we have done many darkroom sessions in his darkroom, and I was able to actually learn a lot more in my lighting technique when I do digital photography because of that. My father-in-law, Tim Courtwright, he's an amazing photographer, as was his father, and that really helped me and it continues me to be motivated and grow my skills as a photographer. We actually recently, my girlfriend, her father, and I, we actually went to New Hampshire and Vermont, and we actually did a lot of photography there, mostly digital, of course. But it really helped me understand lighting and technique and positioning and just seeing a different eye in an environment that I'm not used to. Like to do black and white photography in like a nature setting when there's shadows, clouds, textures, and stuff like that. Your lighting has to be in a certain level. And I brought my film camera as well as my digital camera. And when I did the film editing on that, I really see now what I need to work on in order to get the digital editing right.
Okay. Hello, Brosen. Yeah, you've been listening to Daniel, and since we're coming to the end, and maybe you have something to say about it, and we'll move on to Beatrice and Gillian.
Yeah, we just appreciate his coming to the radio, to the show, and he really has explained a lot of things going on about American culture in link with African culture. where people can learn a lot, about his story and his art and everything. So I hope we're gonna have him again another time, and we thank him for coming.
Yeah, Danielle, it's been like really great pleasure having you here. So
Oh, I've enjoyed it too.
it's a very